Cuba, the largest island of the Caribbean, is located between Jamaica and the Bahamas. It has a population of 11 million people and its official language is Spanish. Cuba, which has a modern subtropical climate, became an American protectorate after the Spanish-American War in 1898.
On July 26, 1953, a small band of Cuban revolutionaries, led by Fidel Castro, launched an attack on the Moncada barracks. The attack's objective was to start a revolution against the dictatorship of Batista, but the goal was not achieved. Castro was arrested for organizing the armed uprising, but it was then when he made his famous speech, "History will absolve me." Some years later, in 1959, President Batista of Cuba fled from Cuba to the Dominican Republic, which allowed Fidel Castro's forces to seize power. Castro overthrew Batista's regime, and this day became known as the 26th of July movement, to commemorate the failed attack. Formal relations between the USSR and Cuba were established in 1960. After the US refused to buy Cuba's sugar, the USSR announced that they would be the ones to buy it. In no time, the USSR developed military ties, and in 1962 placed Soviet nuclear weapons in Cuba. This act then triggered the Cuban Missile Crisis.
The Bay of Pigs invasion was a plan of attack in Cuba in order to overthrow its leader, Fidel Castro, and to establish a non-communist government that was friendly to the USA. It was proposed by the Central Intelligence Agency, and its planning began during the presidency of Eisenhower in March 1960. The USA then began to set up training camps in Guatemala and was training a small army for the invasion. It was planned to keep this a secret so that the USA would not look involved, and if it succeeded, José Mirona Cardona would take over the provisional presidency of Cuba. However, Castro became aware of this in October 1960, and in 1961, Kennedy became president and authorized the invasion plan. This attack occurred in April 15, 1961, and 8 bombers were used to bomb Cuba. However, most of them missed their target, and more complications arrived in the next day, thus resulting in the failing of the original plan. Castro then killed some of the remaining soldiers, but kept a few as prisoners. He kept them in captivity for 20 months until he negotiated with Kennedy for their release in exchange of $53 million worth in baby food and medicine.
The moment known as the Cuban Missile Crisis began in October 15, 1962, the day in which the U.S. intelligence personnel discovered that the USSR were building medium-range missiles in Cuba. President Kennedy created a top-secret emergency meeting group known as the EXCOM to discuss and solve the issue, which decided to take in action a naval movement to block the sites and demand the dismantlement of the bases and removal of the missiles. This action escalated within 6 days to a near-nuclear war between the superpowers. The USSR negotiated the removal of the missiles in Cuba if the US removed their missiles from Turkey, giving an end to the crisis. The USSR won the crisis after accomplishing the removal of the US missiles from Turkey, bluffing with the size and amount of ships all the time.